You're watching the Daily Climate Show on Sky News. On today's programme, a warning of impending catastrophe in Madagascar as the island country faces its worst drought in 40 years. Lessons in nature, how a new rewilding centre could help push biodiversity around the UK. And the unexpected climate benefits of volcanoes. Hello and welcome to the UK's only daily climate news show. Madagascar is facing the world's first climate change famine, with the United Nations warning that 4 years without enough rain has devastated isolated farming communities. The island is the only conflict-free country in the world experiencing catastrophic levels of hunger. Well, in a moment, I'll be speaking to UNICEF's Deputy Representative for Madagascar about what can be done to help those starving because of climate instead of conflict. But first, here's more on what's happening. Well, joining me now is Jean-Benoit Manez, Madagascar Deputy Representative for UNICEF. Welcome to you. First of all, just how serious is the situation there?
Thanks, Anne. It's pretty serious because we consider that up to 1 million people can be affected, out of which 500,000 children. And I mean, there are several droughts in the south, but what makes this drought special is the scale, of course. The fact that the third drought in a row, the fact that in addition, the country has been weakened by COVID, and there's growing insecurity, economic crisis, which makes the support more complex than usual.
And is it clear that climate change is responsible? And if so, is there a sense of frustration there at all at the world's biggest polluters who've contributed the most to global warming?
It's a mix, of course. You do have climate change, which makes drought more frequent, more intense, and happening in places where it didn't take place before. But there's also a local environmental degradation, which accelerates and aggravates the situation. So I would say that there's definitely a frustration, but we also need to work on the local roots.
And how concerned are you that if climate change is responsible, there are going to be more events like this taking place in future?
There are not going to be more events. There are already more events. I mean, we have more cyclones. We have cyclones in places where there used to be no cyclones. We have more floods, and we have more droughts with aggravated impact, sand, wind, and so on and so forth. So it's already there. And I think what's worrying us is that local communities have no choice but aggravating the situation by coping with the little resource they do have, cutting trees, overusing water. And that's a kind of vicious cycle that will not basically find any easy solution, at least in the short term.
Tell us a bit more about what is happening as a result of climate change. What weather events is it producing?
I would say that right now, Madagascar is attacked on all sides, and you have some even indirect events like the rise of pandemics, because we do have regular plagues epidemics, and plague is caused by rodents which are living forest because of deforestation. So I would say and it's a good way to do it. It's a perfect storm right now, where an island which is already poor, which is already vulnerable, is going to be more poor and more vulnerable, with, I would say, little direct responsibility into it. Because, well, we are little producers of course, CO2.
Jean-Benoit Manez, thanks very much indeed.
Welcome.
In today's other climate news, a study has found fire weather, the combination of hot and dry conditions with the potential to spark massive wildfires, has become more common in Western America. Over the past 50 years, Sacramento in California has seen the number of fire weather days almost triple. It comes as 10 communities in the Sierra Nevada region are under evacuation orders due to the growing French fire there. More than a quarter of cars produced in the UK in July were either electric or hybrid electric. UK car factories made more than 126,000 alternatively fuelled cars last month, the highest share on record. That's despite overall UK car production falling to its lowest July level in 65 years. And Indonesia may experience more natural disasters in the coming months, according to the country's meteorological agency. The country's monsoon season is expected to start earlier and be more severe this year as a result of climate change. Disasters linked to the weather conditions could include hail, lightning and tornadoes. Now, when you think of the English countryside, an idyllic image of green rolling hills might come to mind. But diversifying how our landscape looks through rewilding could play a crucial role in tackling the climate crisis. It involves letting nature take care of itself, repairing damaged ecosystems and restoring degraded landscapes. And now a new centre is being launched to help landowners learn about the practice. So why is it needed? Well, at the moment, less than 1% of England is part of active rewilding programmes. Now, that compares to approximately 70% of UK land. That's around 17 million hectares, which is used for agricultural purposes. According to Rewilding Britain, restoring 6 million hectares of natural habitats such as woodlands, peatlands, grasslands and wetlands would store and capture more than 10% of all Britain's greenhouse gas emissions. And a fifth of Britain's species could be saved from decline or extinction by increasing the scale, quality and connections between habitats around the country. Well, Fraser Hugill runs a mixed farm of livestock and crops and has been improving biodiversity through hedgerows and wildflowers. But he says a specific centre isn't necessarily the answer to help farmers rewild.
I think there's quite a challenge around venues in terms of, how will people travel, and often landowners and farmers are quite busy. So I think I'm not saying there's not a role for it, but I think if we want it to be more widely spread, it's, what can we do within locality?
Contractor Ground Control is behind the Wildfell Centre for Environmental Recovery, which is being launched, and their director is Kim Morish, who joins me now. Welcome to you. How important is rewilding, and how much of a challenge is it in a country that has so large a proportion of its land devoted to farming?
How important is rewilding? Vitally important. And as you mentioned earlier, just allowing the land to do nothing and have a chance for nature to recover is what so many of us should and could be doing. When we purchased the Grace Farm, which we've renamed the Wildfell Center for Environmental Recovery, most of it was used for pasture and for farming of crops, many of which were used to feed livestock. We're going to be moving to rewilding, to setting up some woodland creation by planting native broadleaf trees. And it's just, it's everything that we can do to restore nature and give it a chance to recover.
And clearly there's an environmental benefit to producing food locally. Is it possible to achieve a balance where that carries on at the same time as rewilding enough of the country as necessary?
That's a great point. Of course, it's vitally important that we allow food to be produced in the most efficient ways, and especially close to home. Much of this land is already degraded and is not the most productive for direct human consumption food sources. So we will be picking and choosing the land that we use for rewilding and tree planting, and the rest we will look for more ecological ways to farm.
And is a centre the best way forward? How practical is it for landowners up and down the country to travel to your site?
Well, it's not necessarily a centre for people to travel to. It's a centre where we can do research evidence-based approaches to rewilding and carbon sequestration through tree planting, and then share that as a roadmap. So while it's wonderful to see it, it's more getting the knowledge and the learning that we can share with anyone who has property, whether that's 20 square meters or 2,000 hectares. That's what's missing, is opportunities for learning. And so whether that's live or just through knowledge-based sharing, that's what we're hoping to achieve.
Kim Morish, thanks very much indeed. Volcanoes are responsible for both emitting and removing CO2 from the atmosphere, stabilising temperatures at the Earth's surface. That's according to research which looked at their impact over the last 400 million years and found that they act as a safety valve for the Earth's long-term climate. And while volcanoes won't solve the human-induced climate crisis, they might be able to play a small part in helping address global warming. So here's how. And finally, thousands of spider crabs have been spotted in knee-deep water just a few metres from a popular Cornish beach. The crustaceans gather every year between the late summer and early autumn to protect themselves from predators during the molting process. Populations of spider crabs are thought to have thrived in recent years as a direct result of climate change and warming ocean temperatures. Well, that's everything from us for today. Coming up next time, as bags are packed and tents assembled ahead of Reading and Leeds this weekend, we're looking at the climate impact of festivals. You can find out more tomorrow here on Sky News. Thanks for watching.